Hello and welcome to episode number 83 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And this is, it's been a week since we've talked to you, kind of a weird recording schedule we've got coming up. We're both super busy throughout late June, early July. But this episode, what we're going to do, we are going to talk about those crazy week 11 matchups, talk about all our teams. We're also going to talk about a little other general league news, and we're going to record another one for you later this week. Hopefully have it up on Sunday, Saturday or Sunday. And that will be the one where we talk about all of the big trades that happened. A lot of big trades. One annoyingly small trade that I wish was bigger. You'll know which one that is when we talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll find a way to get you back for that. But before we get into the matchups, let's talk about a few interesting cuts that have been made. The first cut we want to talk about, Ha-Sung Kim. He got cut by Alex and Zach, former fourth overall pick in the 2021 prospect draft. That was just a little over a year and a half ago was when it was in the podcast era. So you can go back and hear our thoughts on Kim. But either way, are you surprised that Alex and Zach cut him?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting timing because he cut him for CJ Abrams, who had just been called up after the Machado injury. And I don't believe Machado, and actually I need to double check this. I don't know if he actually landed on the IL. The injury looked worse when it happened. I feel like that's what happens in a lot of these ankle injuries because you can't put your weight on it. But Machado is still day to day, but he just he's supposed to come back today, but he hasn't played in a little bit. Kim though, he has a 92 WRC plus this year, so he has it better than he did last year. 4 home runs, 4 steals, in 263 plate appearances. So he hasn't been anything particularly special, but I'm a little surprised they gave up on him now. He was playing quite a bit with the Tatis injury as is. I mean, I don't think these numbers are particularly great, but in the landscape of kind of what's out there for free agent hitters, it's not terrible. And he's tri-eligible at second, third, and short. And he's only 26, and this is a team that's rebuilding. So I was a little surprised that they cut him. I thought it was really smart by Anthony to put in a waiver claim for him. Anthony got him this morning, and I think that that's the type of gamble that Anthony should be making. But yeah, I'm a little surprised he got cut. I think maybe they could have salvaged a late round pick if they would have just traded him.
Yeah, I bet they could have got something for him. It is worth noting that that this Kim cut coincides with a promotion of CJ Abrams, who presumably will be cutting into Kim's playing time in that Padres infield, and especially when Tatis comes back, who knows how much Kim is going to be playing, you could say. But I don't know. It's definitely interesting. I'm not the highest on Kim right now. But what is interesting is there have been 4 Asian players, from players from the KBO or the NPB in Korea or Japan, taken in the first round of one of our prospect drafts. 3 of them have been cut now. Those 3 have been they all were cut within the first year and a half, 2 years after being drafted. So none of them really stuck on their team. And the 4th is Seiya Suzuki, who is on Erik's IL at the moment. Erik had demoted him previously. Now he's stashing him on his IL. But yeah, so far, Suzuki had a really hot first couple weeks, but hasn't been super great since. And like I said, he's been hurt. But so far, not great returns for these guys.
Yeah, and that's not even to mention Kwang Young Kim was drafted in the third round in 2020, and he's already gone back to, I believe it was a KBO he went back to this offseason. And Conor drafted Shung Yamaguchi with the 13th overall pick in the 2020 draft, and I believe he has since gone back to
Yeah, really. If you expand that to the top 13, that's 6 picks, 5 of which have been cut fairly quickly from their teams, and the 6 being Suzuki. If you include my draft pick of Yusei Kikuchi in 2019.
Oh man, I forgot about Kikuchi too. I mean, Kikuchi is like not taken off the way that people thought he would either.
Yeah, he had a rough start to his career. He's been kind of up and down since. I remember being kind of high on him going into this season. And I know he's been up and down. He was an all-star last year. But yeah, this year hasn't been great.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. It's like obviously Otani was drafted in our 2018 draft, and he's panned out, but he was just a talent on a whole different level.
Man, I'm sure he would have been first overall. There would have been a crazy fight to get him if our league started 1 year earlier and he was in that inaugural, if he was in our prospect draft.
God, that'd be, yeah. I mean, if we started the league again today, would Otani be the first overall pick?
If we started as in a new inaugural draft today?
Yes.
I don't know. He'd be top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I think he'd be top 5 for sure. I could see the argument for number 1.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I could see the argument. I think it'd be tough not to go with one of Soto, Acuna, or Tatis.
I think so too. I think especially for the age and maybe a little more guarantees on the injury side, although interestingly, both Acuna and Tatis have dealt with some major injuries to start their career. But interesting that a lot of these Asian guys just have not panned out other than Otani, and I guess the jury's still out on Suzuki. Even Kikuchi's best ERA so far in a single year is 4.41. So, but there is another cut that I know you wanted to talk about. Myles Straw.
Myles Straw, indeed. It took you long enough.
Yeah, he was really hot in April, and I remember chatting you like after his first game, he had like gotten on like his first like 2 or 3 at bats. He stole a couple bases at the end. It's like Myles Straw. This is it. Like it's gonna be great. And he was really hot in April. I believed in the plate discipline, the skills he had, and then he just like hit a wall. And I was fine with it for a while because the Guardians continued to hit him lead off, and he's like one among like the runs leaders in baseball. So it was like runs and stolen bases. I was like, this is useful. And then it reached the point where the OBP was just too much of a drag. And he's not hitting for any power, which my team has not been hitting for as much power or driving in as many runs this year. And I think rostering him has probably been a culprit. And the real dagger was that he moved to the 9 hole in the lineup. And the second I saw that, I was like, I'm done with him. I almost traded him away last week. Team backed out at the last second. And when Woodruff came off the IL today, I decided it was time to let him go. But it was a bummer. I really thought he could hit like have like a 350 OBP with like 30 stolen bases. I really looked like he could do that while scoring a lot of runs and hitting leadoff. But did not come to fruition. I think I need to just stop putting my faith in these guys who have soft contact. I feel like I have a thing for these guys when I look at the walk rate or to plate discipline and cough, Kevin Biggio, and it just doesn't pan out. Trent Grisham is another guy like that I was all in on. Thankfully, you nor anyone else ever caved and gave him to me, but I was all on the Trent Grisham hype train. I got to stop with these guys.
Jake Fraley didn't pan out either.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I've never paid up for Jake Fraley. In fact, I feel like I might have traded away Jake Fraley at one point. Let me search this one up. Jake Fraley's been involved in 3 trades into the league. I acquired Jake Fraley. Ooh, this is a fun one. I traded Nick Anderson to Erik for Brandon Workman, Ryan Weathers, Jake Fraley, and Alex and Zach's 2020 second round pick back in 2019, and then traded away Jake Fraley for a third round pick to Conor in 2020.
But anyway, Miles Straw, I put a hot take in the sheet back in, looks like just before the season started, that Miles Straw would be off your roster by June 1st. I was not correct, but I was almost correct. So I'll count it as half a win. If I had said July 1st, I would have been correct. I guess I was right in spirit, but just got the date wrong.
Yeah. It certainly looked like he was going to spend all season on my team after that April, but yeah, if you had said July 1st, I wonder if I would have, because we're close enough to July 1st now, where I wonder if I would have found a way just to keep him on my roster for a couple more days. But it just wasn't meant to be.
It was not.
It was not. I asked Cam off air, what do you think is longer, a Miles Straw or a Shed Long? And honestly, I'm curious to hear the listener results. So if you listen to this podcast, please chat me and Cam with what you think the answer is to that question, and maybe some rationale for it. I would love to hear people's thoughts about what is longer between a Miles Straw and a Shed Long. Cam revealed his answer to me.
Should I reveal it on the podcast?
I think you should reveal it on the podcast.
All right. So my thought is that a Miles Straw is longer because a Shed Long is just probably just a little bit longer than a regular shed, probably a few feet longer than a regular shed. It's a long shed. But a Miles Straw is multiple miles, some number of miles longer than a regular straw. So it's miles as opposed to feet. It's whole different terms here, entirely different scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument you can make those is a shed can be as long as you want the shed to be.
The straw can be as many miles as you want it to be.
That is true. It's a tough one. It's one of those existential questions that I feel like scholars like years from now, when they're studying baseball history, the 2010s and 2020s, they'll be asking themselves, like, which one was longer? It's kind of like the age-old question, the pitcher or the hitter. It's the Miles Straw or the Shed Long, the straw or the long.
Indeed. But speaking of the pitcher or the hitter, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, good call. Were there any other notable ads, drops, anything else we wanted to talk about? Here's some breaking news. Cole Calhoun is back on Yuki's team.
Really? Back on Yuki's team?
He is back on Yuki's team. I guess I know his love affair with Erik was over, but funny to see Yuki picking back up after the trade. And two more for fun. Yuki picked up Austin Nola, so that's another catcher on our catcher checklist or is over under.
Interesting. How many does that make?
Okay, so and he actually added Christian Vasquez back and cut.
Wait, no. So are we counting? He owned Austin Nola back in just before the season started, but he traded him away shortly before it began. Are we counting that as an Austin Nola own? Or are we only counting it now, considering that it was during the season?
I think we're only counting during the season because I think our over under is based on the catchers that he used. So either way, Nola's been satisfied. He has Christian Vasquez again. That counts as one. Tyler Stevenson, Dalton Varsho. Has he owned Mike Zunino this year? It feels like that's somebody Yuki's owned at one point.
He has. Yes, he owned
Okay, so
him
that's 5
towards the beginning.
We're only one catcher off from the 6 catchers, and Gabriel Moreno's been promoted to the majors. So I wonder if Gabriel Moreno is going to be that 6.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to add somewhere in the sheet here who the catchers were, just so we. Oh no, we had 6.5 as the over under. Okay, so even if Moreno's won, he'll need one more. Somebody, if only he had kept like JT Realmuto for like the first week of the season. Let's see, Carson Kelly, maybe he'll pick him up. Oh, Yuki had Elias Diaz for a week.
Oh, so that's 6?
That is 6. Go Yuki. All right, he is just one catcher away.
Go Yuki. But speaking of go Yuki, Yuki defeated EBO this past week to improve to 4-5-2. 6-5-1 victory. Another frustrating week for EBO. Both teams did not play the best. I got to say, Yuki's had some losses where he played really well. This was a week where he didn't play extraordinarily well. He did in some ways, but he still was able to pull off the win to keep himself alive in that playoff race.
Yeah, EVO really collapsed at the end of the week. It was actually kind of crazy to watch because they had the lead for most of the week, and just the weekend didn't go too well for them. Yuki was pretty solid offensively. The pitching really fell apart, but as he's kind of done this year, it's really been the saves that have been carrying him. But the ERA and WHIP just weren't there this week. It was a fun upset in the sense that like Yuki never beats Zane. That's like been his kryptonite, and it's kind of funny to see Yuki finally beat Zane. But yeah, it wasn't really notable for too much other than that. Yuki does kind of hang around the playoff hunt with that win. He really needed that to avoid kind of sinking too far close to the bottom. He's a game and a half out of a playoff spot. And he is well, for 4-5-2, he's if he wins this week, he's at 500. I don't know about you, but I certainly would not have guessed that Yuki would be sitting at 500 after 12 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it's not at all fluky either. He's playing well on the road. I would have maybe thought that he could have pulled off a few fluky wins, but with the expectation of regression. But if anything, we should be expecting him to regress towards having a better record because he really has been playing well. I guess this week wasn't the best, but he still drove in 52 runs, had 8 saves despite the high ERA. He just kind of continuing his ways of playing well. I was not at all expecting this.
Yeah, I will say it's interesting because I feel like in prior years he has overperformed his like expected results based on like the roto and some other statistics, and this year he's underperforming. But he did lose 2 key players this week. Bryce Harper with the fractured thumb, and Kenley Jansen just landed on the IL with an irregular heartbeat. That could be a tricky timeline. And for a team that's relied so much on their closers and racking up saves this year, Kenley low-key is a pretty big loss for him as well. Obviously, Harper's the big one as the leader of this offense. But, he has Harper, Stevenson, Brandon Lau, Drew Rasmussen, among others on the IL. So, it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep up pace here with those injuries, because those are 2 really big losses. We'll
Absolutely. I definitely wonder if he can do that. Maybe gives him another reason to start selling at the deadline, because he does have some pieces I bet he could get something for. One of those is Dansby Swanson, who I'll name as the matchup MVP. He scored 7 times, drove in 6, hit 4 home runs with a 400 on base. Just a great week, and I wonder if he's a guy that Yuki could see himself moving.
Bold of you to pick Dansby Swanson as a matchup MVP over the AL Player of the Week.
Who was the AL Player of the Week?
Isaac Paredes.
Really, Isaac? I mean, he was fine. He only had 12 at bats, 13 plate appearances. Why was he AL Player of the Week?
No, because that 3 home run game was part of the week too.
Oh, I bet Yuki had him on his bench.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, let's check that because that'd be pretty. Yuki might not have had him promoted on his major league roster. He did not. Okay, so you know what? Giving it to Swanson's fair. I didn't think about Yuki not having him on his roster at the beginning of the week. Yuki probably promoted him after he hit the 3 home runs. But still a great week by Paredes, and it'll be interesting to see if he will keep up some of this playing time with like Wander coming off the IL. Maybe that could help replace some of what he's about to lose with Bryce Harper. But yeah, anything else you want to say about either of these teams? EBO is just rebuilding. I'm not really, surprised at this point with any result that they have the rest of the season.
Yeah, I guess there's not a lot to say about EBO per se. Other than that, they got another good start out of Michael Wacha, who has proven to be a good pickup for them. Really the only pitcher they had who pitched really well, him and Keegan Thompson. But yeah, no, not a lot to say about EBO. Do you want to talk about...
Actually, let me say one more thing about EBO before we go over there. This Jack Flaherty injury for them is devastating.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just trading for him, and now he lands on the IL. Of the 4 major league players in that Mookie Betts deal, 3 of them are on the IL, and one of them was injured most of last week. That was George Springer, but Betts, Meadows, and Flaherty are now all on the IL with no clear timetable to return.
All right. Let's talk about Jake and Anthony's matchup now. That was a shocking tie. Jake drops to 6-3-2 with a tie against Anthony, who now just like you has tied 4 times this year, although you got 5 wins and he has 1. But either way, definitely a shocking result.
Yeah. Anthony has now tied back-to-back weeks against me and Jake after winning against EBO the week before. So actually, Anthony, after starting the season 0-6-1, is now 2-0-1 the past 3 weeks. So maybe he's heating up a little bit, but no,
1-0-2.
1-0-2. Sorry. Math is hard. But no, this was a pretty solid job by Anthony, especially in the pitching end. He was able to maintain a pretty low ERA, 3.07, all right whip, 125. Did some solid stream and was able to stream a Rich Hill quality start on Sunday. Although I wonder if Rich Hill did not have the best whip, and I wonder if that cost him whip and thus the matchup. But I'd have to go back and calculate that. And it was an interesting decision because Jake did not end up streaming anybody on Sunday, which already guaranteed Anthony the quality start when it was really just a question of whether or not he could maintain a whip lead, and that was ultimately close. But Anthony didn't have the best offensive week. He narrowly edged Jake in OBP, but only by 0.02. His 5 steals were decent, but he trailed Jake in the rest of the offensive categories, but that was still enough for the tie. Kind of a weird letdown week for Jake, and kind of interesting that he had 9 starts, but was only able to get 3 quality starts, and kind of weird for somebody who's so used to voluming their way to victory that they were only able to rack up 3 quality starts. Are you concerned about his rotation at all?
I don't know. That's definitely a surprising week seeing him only get 3 quality starts. I don't know. I've really and not that I was ever the biggest Blake Snell fan, but he's really just not been good at all this year. Who else? Alex Wood has not had a great year. He's kind of maybe a guy who was good last year, but wasn't the most long-term thing. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Sandy Alcantara did have not his best start of the year, but he's still great. He's still second on the player radar among pitchers. He's had a phenomenal year. Luis Castillo's been up and down, but I still believe in him. I still believe in Rodon. He had a good week. Carrasco did not, but he's okay. Overall, I do still believe in this rotation. I still think it's one of the better ones in the league. It just kind of had a rough week this time.
And I'd say I definitely think it's one of the better rotations in the league, and I think the top four of Alcantara, Rodon, Castillo, and Montas is a really good group of pitchers. Although I am a little concerned about Rodon's innings and the rest of the year and the injury history. And like you said, Castillo has been a little bit up and down, and some of these other names beyond them don't really inspire a ton of confidence in me. So I wonder if he's maybe in line for another depth acquisition or two in that rotation to get him through. But yeah, I think you're right. This is probably just more of a down week for his starting pitching than anything. But that unfortunately was the difference. I'm not too concerned about this team overall. Jake's been doing great in the roto and been playing great overall on the season, but yeah, definitely just a down week this week that resulted in a tie, and good for Anthony for taking advantage.
Yeah, no, absolutely good for Anthony. I'll give matchup MVP. His hitters really did not hit super well, so he was lucky to pull out the tie in that regard. But I will give matchup MVP to Christian Javier. 13 Ks, 7 innings of a combined no-hitter. Got that quality start, just pitched a real gem for Anthony.
Yeah, Christian Javier has been a little bit up and down on the season, but the upside is really high, and it was fun to see him put it all together. I certainly think Christian Javier could have a bright future on this team. And I'm really curious to see how he follows up his great performance against the Yankees. Against the Yankees too. I mean, the team is just dominating hitting right now in Yankee Stadium too. So that's short porch. I mean, boy, that was impressive.
But anyway, do you want to talk about my matchup? That was definitely a big one.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised we didn't lead off with this one. You played Erik in a rematch of that very what I thought was going to be a close semis matchup, which ended up being kind of a blowout, and this one also ended up being kind of a blowout. Now, I'll preface this by saying you were out of town, so you did have a little bit of a hard time getting to a computer to set your lineup some of these days, it sounded like. And you did actually end up making it kind of close by the end of the week, but I never really felt like Erik was going to lose at any point over the course of the week. It was your matchup, but so I'll let you kind of give all the details. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so let me start out by saying that the semis matchup, it was close. It was really close going for pretty much the whole week. It's just most of the close categories flipped Erik's way on the last day, but there were a lot of close categories. I wasn't terribly far from winning. I wouldn't have called it a blowout despite the score. And as for this one, yeah, I lost, and I was down by a lot for most of the week. But like I said, I was in Nova Scotia on just an incredible trip. But as part of that, I didn't have much signal or Wi-Fi. I actually had a lot less than I was planning on having. I set my lineup briefly, a little bit on Thursday, and I set it fully on Sunday. But other than that, I did not set my lineup at any point this week. So I was just kind of going in blind. I wasn't able to put pitchers in. I wasn't able to put hitters in. I think Juan Soto was on my bench for 4 days.
It was.
Um, so with all of that in mind, I was able to make it kind of close at the end. I tied quality starts. I almost won whip. I almost won homers. I was close in RBIs. Really, I don't know. I'm 6-3-2 now. Erik's 8-1-2. This could have gone a lot worse. And I don't know. I feel confident in my ability to beat Erik when I'm setting my lineup. In this after what happened this week, I really made it especially towards the end, I made it as close as I possibly could have on the strength of, I guess, how good my team is, despite the fact that I just wasn't able to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that, this matchup was a lot closer than maybe it looked like it was going to be. And I was definitely impressed by that. I do think, Erik is a very good team. I think Erik is the best team in the league right now. But, you and a couple others certainly have teams that, can consistently give him trouble over the course of a season. And I think that this is, one example of that, where a lesser team might not have really come back, but you were able to, work your way at least back into a somewhat competitive matchup here at the end. Erik does now have a 1.5 game advantage over everyone, with now a season sweep of me and a win over you. He did tie Jake and he did lose to Ruthvik. So at the moment, those aren't definitive tiebreakers in his direction. But do you picture him losing the 1 seed? I think I don't know if it's like locked, like guaranteed, like nothing can happen. Like obviously, he could have a losing streak or something, but like I think there's nothing to me that suggests that he's not getting a buy in the number 1 seed to enter the postseason.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right. It would take a lot for Erik to lose that number 1 seed. Although maybe I play him again in week 20 in rivalry week part 2. I would love it if that matchup decided, had some big implications. As of now, I am 2 games behind him, but a lot can sure happen the rest of the way. But yeah, as of now, it would really take a lot for him to lose that 1 seed.
Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunate for me, as I am very used to having that 1 seed, had it the last 3 years. But I guess I was gonna pass it on at some point to somebody else. I just was hoping it wouldn't be Erik. But anything else you want to say about this matchup?
Yeah, we got to give out matchup MVP. Erik had 109 strikeouts this week. He was just 2 shy of the record. This was the 4th most strikeouts in a single week ever. So he really brought his A game, particularly in terms of strikeouts. 109. His pitching in general was just on fire. The 1 week I get a bunch of holds, Erik has 1 more than me. So that was definitely frustrating. But his clear matchup MVP has to be Dylan Cease. He struck out 24 guys in 13 innings, with allowing just 1 earned run, 0.62 whip in a pair of quality starts. Insane week. He is just on fire this year. Why is he only 28th in the player rater in terms of pitchers? He's got a great ERA.
Because the whip.
Yeah, the whip's not great. The whip was great this week.
It was great this week, but that's been his whole issue.
The whip's bringing him down that much. Wow.
Dylan Cease with like a better whip, like even just a little bit better, is probably like a top 10 pitcher. It's literally just, for some reason, he lets a bunch of guys on, and then I don't quite understand it. I mean, if you're striking out 24 guys in 13 innings, you would think that you're not letting that many guys on, and I guess this week he didn't. But I don't know. He shouldn't be letting this many guys on base. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I'm looking at his page right now. He's got a 324 BABIP. I guess he just walks a lot of guys. That's always been an issue. He's walking over 4 per 9 this year, so that's really just what it is.
Yeah, but at some point though, it's like you can't just overlook that even with the ERA. It's just that's hard to kind of handle on a week to week basis. But no, he's certainly a very talented pitcher. I love his mustache, and hopefully for Erik's sake, he could really just put it all together and keep up some of these low whip weeks.
But yeah, we just talked about my matchup. Do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed I didn't play Erik this week because I think I would have beat him. Erik and I basically, I chatted him this on like Saturday. I think it was like you and I are basically having the same week, and it was kind of astonishing. But my team finally did what I thought it would do all season, and that was hit well and pitch well at the same time. I had 95 strikeouts, but I only used 10 starts to do that. 8 of the 10 starts were quality starts. I was able to rack up 6 holds, a 2.33 ERA, 0.96 WHIP was fantastic. In addition to my really good pitching week against Anthony last week, even though I tied that matchup, I've gone from having the worst ERA in the league to the 7th ranked ERA in the league. My ERA has dropped from over 4 to just a little over 3.7. So it's nice to see the pitching finally coming together. I know I've had a couple guys who were struggling earlier in the year who seem like they're finding their footing a bit more, i.e. Charlie Morton has really broken out of his slump. Julio Urias looks a little more solid. Brandon Woodruff just came back today, so nice to get healthier there. And the offense also performed very well. And without Tatis and Betts, they were still rolling this week. Springer didn't play most of the week either, but a lot of my guys they're just kind of just getting it together, and it's really encouraging to see. And if my team can keep playing like this, there's no reason that I can't ever my second half of the season just really take off and perform at the level that I thought I would. So I was really happy to see that. As for Ruthvik, the ERA and WHIP just weren't there. The saves and holds, 15 combined was really impressive. And
is a lot, yeah.
Starts. So he racked up the numbers. His problem was Jose Barrios gave up 14 earned runs in like 6 something innings this week. He had 2 really bad starts. And then the offensive numbers just weren't quite there other than doubles and steals. So wasn't enough for him this week. But I'm willing to bet against quite a few teams he probably would have won on the strength of the 6 quality starts, 8 saves, and 7 holds. But I will gladly take this 8-4 victory over Ruthvik. He way better against these playoff teams than the non-playoff teams.
Yeah, no, Ruthvik had a mediocre week, particularly hitting wise. He was seemed to be either great in a lot of categories or terrible in them. But yeah, you seem to be really whipping yourself into shape, particularly pitching wise. 95 strikeouts. That ERA and WHIP were impeccable. Your MVP's got to be Garrett Cole for the week with his 2 quality starts. Very similar week to the week that. Yeah.
Again, you did not pick the player of the week as someone's MVP.
Who's that?
Yeah, Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman had a really good week.
550.
I felt like I wanted to give it to a pitcher.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Garrett Cole is definitely the guy. If you're going to give it to a pitcher, what he had.
Very similar week to Dylan Cease, but a little bit worse.
Yeah, and a little bit worse is a 126 ERA and a
Yeah.
0.70 whip. I mean, it's still pretty damn good. And well, he carried a no hitter pretty deep into the Monday game, and low-key kind of had one somewhat deep in the Saturday game, but that got overshadowed by the Christian Javier combined no hitter.
Yeah, no, definitely. Either way, he pitched great. Only two matchups left, though. Let's talk about the one that was low-key a pretty big upset. Alex and Zach handily beat Andrew 8-3-1. I know this is when we both picked Andrew. Alex and Zach have been kind of treading water, really struggling this year, whereas Andrew has been off to a surprisingly hot start. He is now 5-1. Alex and Zach played great. They had 59 runs. Great hitting week, 8 steals, 363 on base. It wasn't even that Andrew played badly. It was just Alex and Zach had a great week. Pitching was, I guess, kind of average, but with hitting like that, you're going to win most weeks, and that is what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. This is just kind of a little bit unlucky for Andrew. I think Andrew played pretty well. I mean, I've talked about his team maybe having a little bit more variation and being a little more inconsistent. And perhaps this was like a solid week, but maybe not one of his best weeks, but I still think he could have won a lot of weeks. Alex and Zach just really did well. I don't expect too many of these like huge weeks for this team, but like, well, and like the past like 2 weeks, Riley Green was called up, and Josh Lowe is back in the majors, and CJ Abrams was called up. So to go somebody young pitching here, like Joe Ryan's back from the IL, so like there's some interesting young talent here, and I'm curious to see how this shakes out for them the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it's going to result in a lot of wins, but it's certainly going to be a fun team to follow. But good for them to pick up a win there. This has some pretty big implications because had Andrew won, he would have kept the 6th seed over Conor. He owned the tiebreaker over Conor, but he's now a game back of Conor. He's now the 7th seed and only a half game above Yuki. So Andrew's hanging right in the playoff hunt, but this is definitely a setback. He is sitting at 500 through 11 weeks. It definitely kind of where I thought he would be, kind of like playing on the borderline of a playoff spot, but this loss is definitely disappointing. This is one that you need to have if you're gonna, make the playoffs, beating teams like Alex and Zach.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. But either way, yeah, definitely a setback for Andrew. But I will give matchup MVP for the first time in his career, and hopefully not the last. Julio Rodriguez. Great week for him. Scored 8 times, hit 3 homers, stole a base. Really, with that 400 on base percentage, really has been breaking out after maybe a slow first month of his career. He's ever since then, though, he's proving why he was one of the top 5 prospects in all of baseball. I mean, with those 19 steals, he has been an incredibly valuable fantasy asset and looking like he could be a star. Matchup MVP, Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to having to play against Julio Rodriguez for the years to come. He looks like an absolute stud, and that's going to be a fun trade to look back at. Like a decade from now, the Jose Ramirez for Julio Rodriguez deal that Erik and Alex made. And if Julio Rodriguez ends up being a stud, I mean, like he's trending to be, man, that trade might be a win for Alex, when at the time I think we're all pretty shocked that he made that move.
Oh yeah.
But was there another matchup or
yeah, there is one more matchup that we have not yet mentioned, and that is Conor beating the Bellies 9-3. Bellies dropped to 2-9. They fall to last place. Conor does retake that mantle of the sixth seed on that playoff spot 11 weeks into the season. We are over halfway, which is crazy.
It's not.
Yeah, but neither team played tremendously well. The Bellies did score a fair amount of runs, but both teams pitched kind of poorly. Although Conor did have 4 saves, 4 holds, which was solid. But yeah, other than Conor's on base percentage being high, there weren't any categories. And his RBIs, he had 46, but other than that, no categories that really wowed me. But he did what he needed to do against a bad team to keep himself in that playoff hunt.
Yeah. All these winning teams have these weeks where like they're not particularly impressive, but they're solid enough, and that's enough to beat a bad team. I think that's exactly what happened here. I don't really have too much more to add. I don't think this really changes my opinion of either of these teams. Conor, it will be interesting to see how his team develops from here, because he did add a couple of win now pieces over the past couple of weeks. Getting Marcus Semien, getting Justin Verlander, getting Anthony Santander. So I'm curious to see how this works out for him, and maybe in some future weeks if they can, maybe raise his ceiling a little bit. But for now he did what he needed to do to win this week, and good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Matchup MVP, not a lot of players had standout weeks. So I will give it to, let's go Patrick Wisdom, on base percentage of 387, pair of homers, pair of doubles, 6 runs and RBIs each. He was definitely in a week of underwhelming players from both sides. Wisdom excelled and definitely helped Conor out. Especially considering home runs was close, and on base percentage was close.
Yeah, no, he Wisdom low-key has been like pretty decent on the season for fantasy. So yeah, no, I think that is an appropriate pick for player of the week. But with that, I believe we have finished talking about all of the matchups. Are we ready to preview next week's matchups?
Yeah, let's do it. How are we looking in the pick'em standings?
We are, well, do we want to preview next week's matchups first?
Oh yes, matchup to watch.
To watch. Yeah. Sorry, that's what. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done this. We're a little out of sorts here.
Yeah, we are. But matchup to watch. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here when I say that mine is the clear matchup to watch. Me versus Ruthvik. He's in second. I'm in fifth, but I am only half of a game behind him. There's a big 3-way tie for third right now, with Ruthvik only half a game ahead of that pack. So if I beat him, there's a chance I'm up in second again at the end of the week. Again, we're recording this. We're not recording this on Sunday, so a little bit has happened. I am off to a good start, but obviously it is very early. Anything can happen. But yeah, both teams, I would love to have this as a signature win for them.
Absolutely.
Especially me, considering I don't have one yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have now lost to every team with every projected playoff team so far.
Lost or tied.
Lost or tied, yeah. So you are, that's kind of interesting. You have been beaten up on a bunch of bad teams. Kind of the opposite of me. I seem to do my best against the non-Erik good teams.
Yeah, and it's tough. Roto still shows that I'm the second best team, but I've had some bad luck. I've definitely had my fair share of issues, but I don't think I'm worried. I think I'll rise to the top once it's all said and done, at least towards the top. No, I'm not declaring myself the champion or anything, but I think I'll hopefully I think I'll be out of fifth. I think I'll get some good wins down the stretch.
Man, I was about to say breaking news. Cam has already declared himself the champion of the league.
Yeah, that is not what I'm saying just now, but hopefully I can say it at the end.
Well, you see, honestly, I feel like we have to stop saying like good things about our team at the expense of Erik's team, because I feel like that just motivates Erik's team somehow. Like they somehow know his players that we are like shit talking his team, and then they just go out and perform well, and he wins the league. So maybe if we just say a bunch of good things about Erik's teams and downplay our teams this year, maybe it'll work out and one of us will win the championship.
Maybe.
Hey, I talked about, I still remember a quote that I said about my rotation before the season, and it's taken until just now for my rotation to actually finally get into somewhat decent shape. So I feel like I jinxed myself, and I'm not ready to do that again. So I will continue to say bad things about my team for the year. But I agree with you for the matchups. Erik v. Andrew, I think, could also be interesting. We could see if Andrew can bounce back after a loss from Alex and Zach. And Andrew's team has shown itself to have a pretty high ceiling this year when things are clicking. So maybe you could pull off an upset. But nothing else really stands out to me too much. Without further ado, here is how we did last week. Let's start with your matchup. I picked you and Erik to tie. I'd initially picked Erik to win, and then I chatted you right after that, and I was like, you know what? My guts tell me to pick you all to tie. I kind of thought you'd have more service in Nova Scotia as well. It kind of came close, but not quite. You picked Erik to win. You were right there. We both picked Andrew to beat Alex and Zach. We were wrong there. We both picked Yuki and Conor to beat EBO and Daniel and Matt respectively, and we're both correct about that. We both picked Jake to beat Anthony, but they tied. I picked myself to beat Ruthvik. You picked me and Ruthvik to tie. I beat Ruthvik. So the end result of that is we both went 3-1-2 on the week. And if I did math properly, that puts me at 35, 16, and 15. And that puts you at 33, 13, and 20. And if you convert the ties, as we always do, that makes you 43 and 23. And that makes me 42, 23, and 1. So I believe I'm a half game behind you, which means that you make your picks first.
All right. Week 12. I am going to, I'll save my matchup for the end. I think Jake will beat the Bellies. I think you will beat the Tendies. I think Yuki will beat Anthony. I think Conor will beat EBO. I think Erik will beat Andrew. I think these 5 are pretty easy matchups, although I could see Andrew bouncing back from last week. I could also see Anthony pulling off an upset against Yuki, which is really funny to say it that way, considering last year Anthony started off super hot and Yuki had the number 1 overall draft pick. But overall, the most interesting matchup being mine, I think I will pick myself. I am back from Nova Scotia. Farewell to Nova Scotia, and farewell to my bad Wi-Fi and my inability to set my team. I think I will bounce back and move my way up the standings following this week.
I'm impressed that you were able to just casually be like, yeah, I just, I couldn't set my lineup. It is what it is. Because if I had to go a week like without being able to set my dynasty baseball lineup, I think I'd be really stressed out about my team. I don't know.
Yeah, I had other things to take my mind off it, luckily.
Yeah, no, all the beer and being outside, and you're not sitting at a desk all day studying for the bar exam like I am. So I guess you have better distractions than my distractions. But let me make my picks. I'll pick myself to beat Alex and Zach. Believe it or not, if I beat Alex and Zach, this will be the first time all year where I have back-to-back games with the same result.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. I have. Imagine telling me in week 12. Imagine telling me before the season that in week 12 I would not have back-to-back wins at any point over the year. I don't think anybody would believe that.
I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, I would have called you insane. I think Jake will beat Daniel and Matt. I think Conor will beat EBO. I think Erik will beat Andrew, but I think it's going to be a little closer than we think it will be. I'm going to pick Anthony to beat Yuki. Anthony's been playing really well lately. I know Yuki has also been playing well, but Harper's hurt. Jansen's out. Yuki is a full IL and has been cutting players from his IL. I just, I don't know. Anthony's been on a little bit of a hot streak, and I think he's another upset in him. And I'm going to pick you to beat Ruthvik. Maybe I'm just kind of tainted by Ruthvik just talking down on his team like the past week while he was playing me, but I do think you have the better team overall. He's dealing with some injuries, most notably to Ty France. Not that you're not dealing with injuries, but I think you have a little more depth. And I think you're a little more set with your roster right now. Whereas I could see him maybe doing some tinkering this week that might make it a little harder for him to win. And I feel pretty comfortable picking you to win. And hot take, I don't even think that matchup's going to be particularly close. I think you're going to win like 9-3.
Interesting. I would hope so. And I hope you're not biased by the fact that I've started out hot, because we all know the first day does not mean a whole lot.
No. I made like internal picks like in my mind. Like I knew who I was going to say like on Monday morning, because I thought we were going to record yesterday. So I had kind of had it in my head like, okay, this is who I was going to pick. So no, this wasn't. If there's any bias here, it is bias, but from listening to Ruthvik shit on his own team all week. Which if you were to go through my text history with Ruthvik over the past week, it's basically us explaining why the other team was going to win and our team was going to lose. So
that does not surprise me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. But it was enjoyable. It's enjoyable to do that when you know you're going to win, because then it just really messes with the other team, and that's kind of what happened. Also, I did not realize you added a matchup MVPs tab. I like that.
I did. I'm working on it right now. I'll give a listen to some of the older weeks so I can pull those up. But yeah, I'll do some Excel magic and figure out who has been matchup MVP the most, and hopefully keep this running indefinitely.
Oh yeah,
love to get a running sheet.
We definitely should. I fully approve of this. That is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, inspired by my declaration that Julio Rodriguez won matchup MVP for the first time. Yeah, I'd love to know which players get it.
Did you literally add this tab as we were recording?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Speaking of tabs that are on the pitcher to hitter command center, I forgot to put the power rankings up. But I could just read them off 12-1 right now without having any discussion of them if you want, Cam, or I could just throw them in the chat. What do you think?
Yeah, drop them. How about you can even drop them in right now, or read them right now, and then no reaction at all, cut the episode off.
Oh yeah, okay, I like that. So you want me to announce them on the air and then paste them into the
yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Drum roll, please. At number 12, we have Daniel and Matt. At number 11, Alex and Zach. At number 10, Anthony. At number 9, EBO. Then a tier break. Number 8 is Yuki. Number 7 is Andrew. Another tier break. Number 6 is Conor. Number 5 is Ruthvik and Nick. Number 4 is Jake. There's another tier break. Number 3 is me. Number 2 is you. And number 1 is Erik.
Wow. All right. Those are the power rankings.
See you next time. Power rankings. See you next time.
Farewell to Nova Scotia, you ski mountain coast. Let your mountains dark and dreary be. a sigh or a wish for me.
This podcast is good.